Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, lazily running his finger along the rim of his wine glass. Around him, the opulent interior gleamed, massive chandeliers, gilded columns, heavy velvet drapes. Everything looked excessive. "Quite the taste the owner has," he muttered, taking a sip. "Looks like an overpriced hotel stuck in the 90s. Someone at a nearby table choked on their drink. A few glances darted in his direction, but Musk didn't notice. "Money doesn't guarantee style," he continued, addressing his companions. Though, apparently, someone here didn't get the memo. The air around the tables grew tenser. A waiter holding a tray hesitated, then cautiously took a step back. The doors to the VIP section quietly swung open, and Donald Trump stepped into the room. With his signature smirk, he walked confidently toward their table and said, "Glad to hear your opinion, Elon. Especially considering you just criticized my restaurant." Musk raised an eyebrow, looked at him, and smirked. "Oh, so you're the one responsible for this design. That explains a lot." What happened next made everyone in the restaurant fall silent and changed someone's life forever. But before we continue, let's find out where you're from. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel because tomorrow, we have another special story just for you. Silence stretched across the tables for several long seconds. Even the waiters seemed to move more quietly, afraid to miss a single word. Still smiling, Trump slowly took a seat across from Musk, folding his hands on the table. "I love it when people speak their minds," he remarked, "but I love it even more when they know what they're talking about." Musk smirked and set his glass down. "Don, trust me, I know exactly what I'm talking about." Trump nodded at a waiter, and within seconds, a fresh glass of whiskey appeared before him. He took a small sip, then turned his gaze back to Musk. "Well then, since you're such a connoisseur of style, enlighten me. What's wrong with this place?" Musk swept his hands around the room. "Where do I even start? The ceiling moldings belong in an 18th century palace, not a modern restaurant. These gilded columns look like they were bought from a clearance sale at a Vegas casino. And these heavy curtains, they don't create a cozy atmosphere, they make the whole place feel oppressive." Trump nodded slowly as he listened to the critique, then set his glass back down. "So, what bothers you is that this place looks wealthy." "What bothers me is that it looks wealthy, but tasteless," Musk countered. A few guests stifled laughs. A waiter standing nearby pretended not to be there. Trump sighed and leaned forward. "You see, Elon, there are people who come to a restaurant to feel rich, and there are those who come because they already are." Musk smirked. "And you think this interior attracts the latter?" Trump didn't answer right away. He simply smiled and took another sip of whiskey. "Well, since you're so sure you know what a real restaurant should look like, let's put your taste to the test in another way." "Oh, now this sounds interesting," Musk squinted slightly. "Are you proposing a design contest?" "No," Trump set his glass down. "A taste test." A waiter immediately approached their table as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. "I'll order 3 dishes," Trump continued. "Each one is a symbol of true status. You'll try them and tell me which ones are truly worthy of high class." Musk grinned. "I like where this is going." Trump nodded to the waiter. "Then let's begin." The waiter tensed slightly, waiting for Trump to place the order. Musk, leaning back in his chair, watched him with mild curiosity. "All right, Don," he said. "You want to test my taste? Fine. But let's make it truly interesting." Trump raised an eyebrow. "What do you have in mind?" "I'll try 3 dishes," Musk leaned forward. "But it's not enough for me to just evaluate them. I want to guess which one you consider the best, the most status-worthy." Trump paused for a moment, then smirked. "I like your approach." He turned to the waiter and placed the order without hesitation. "Bring us 3 dishes, 1 classic, one modern, and one personal favorite of mine." The waiter nodded and left, while Trump turned back to Musk. "Let's see if your expertise extends beyond design and into real taste." Musk smiled. "Oh, I'm more than ready." A few minutes later, the waiter returned, carefully carrying the first dish, thinly sliced Wagyu beef carpaccio, drizzled with truffle oil and aged balsamic vinegar. "Wagyu carpaccio," the waiter announced. Musk picked up a fork, eyed the dish with curiosity, and took his first bite. He chewed slowly, analyzing the flavors. He finally said. "Good meat. No doubt expensive. The texture is soft, delicate, but..." He looked up at Trump. "But?" Trump narrowed his eyes. "But it's too predictable. This dish says, 'I have money,' but it doesn't say anything about style." Trump smirked. "Interesting take. But don't forget, sometimes status is meant to be obvious." Musk shrugged. "Maybe, but I hope the next one is more exciting." The second dish was placed before them, a crispy slice of rustic bread topped with soft truffle cheese and drizzled with honey. "Truffle cheese and honey bruschetta," the waiter announced. Musk raised an eyebrow. Minimalism. Unexpected." He took a bite. This time, he didn't speak right away. The flavor was rich, the creamy cheese blending perfectly with the sweetness of the honey and the earthy notes of truffle. "This is interesting," he admitted at last. "See?" Trump smirked. "Sometimes simplicity wins." Musk shook his head. "This isn't just simplicity. This is intentional minimalism. This dish doesn't scream status. It proves it." Trump took a sip of his whiskey. "Well then, the last dish should really intrigue you." The final dish was placed before them, an elegant white mushroom cream, served with thin root vegetable chips. "White mushroom cream with caramelized onion chips," the waiter announced. Musk leaned in closer. "Intriguing." He picked up a spoon and took a bite. The flavor was soft yet layered, unfolding gradually. "A very complex dish," he noted. "There are levels to it." He looked at Trump. "Is this your pick?" Trump didn't answer. A brief silence hung over the table before Musk pushed his plate aside and folded his hands in front of him. "Well, Elon. Which of the three dishes do I consider the best?" Musk pondered for a second, then nodded. "The second one. The bruschetta." Trump raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Absolutely." Musk took a sip of wine. "It strikes the perfect balance between simplicity and sophistication." Trump smirked and leaned forward slightly. "Damn, Elon, you're right." Somewhere among the tables, restrained applause broke out. Trump picked up his glass and studied it thoughtfully. "Well, according to our bet, I have to admit you have good taste." Musk grinned. "Go ahead and put that in writing." Trump chuckled. "All right, I'll admit it, minimalism can be elegant." Musk lifted his glass. "And you admit that your restaurant still needs some design improvements?" Trump leaned back in his chair. "Not yet, but the night isn't over." Trump took a business card from the restaurant and casually tossed it onto the table. "Ever thought about investing in the restaurant business, Elon?" Musk laughed. "Don, I'm more into space and technology. What if I suggested we create a restaurant that blends your style with mine?" Musk twirled his glass slowly, considering. "That would be interesting." Trump smiled. "Then maybe we should discuss it further." The waiter brought them another round of drinks. Their conversation continued. The night was just getting started. After the intense tasting session, the restaurant was once again filled with the low hum of conversation. But now, there was a distinct shift in the air, an energy that hung between the tables. Those seated nearby occasionally stole glances at the table where Trump and Musk continued their rivalry. Waiters carefully maneuvered around them, and some guests deliberately slowed down their meals, eager to hear how this culinary battle would unfold. Trump rested his hands on the table, studying Musk with mild interest. "So, you believe that true wealth isn't in gold and crystal but in simplicity perfected?" Musk leaned back in his chair, lazily twirling the stem of his wine glass between his fingers. "Exactly. True class doesn't scream about itself. It speaks for you." Trump smirked. "Then why are your cars designed like something out of a sci-fi movie?" Musk chuckled. "Because they don't just speak for their owners. They speak for the future." Trump raised his glass. "Well then, let's see how far you're willing to take this argument." Trump snapped his fingers, and a waiter immediately approached their table. "Bring us the best dish of the evening," Trump ordered. "We have several, sir," the waiter responded cautiously. Trump glanced at Musk. "Let's make this even more interesting." "I'm all in." "We'll each pick a dish," Trump continued. "One chosen by me, one chosen by you. If the guests prefer your choice, I'll admit your point of view. But if mine is more popular, you'll have to acknowledge that style is about luxury, not minimalism." Musk smirked. "Deal." The waiter nodded and left, while Musk and Trump locked eyes again. "Do you really think you can beat me in the restaurant business?" Trump asked. "I've won in space, I've won in automobiles. Why not here too?" Trump laughed. "Well, good luck, Elon." A few minutes later, the waiters returned, carefully placing the plates before them. Trump's choice was unveiled first, a luxurious ribeye steak, perfectly cooked and adorned with edible gold leaf. "Classic," he declared. "Wealth, status, taste." Musk tilted his head slightly, examining the dish. "Looks beautiful, but it's too obvious." Then, the waiters placed Musk's selection in front of him, a refined dish featuring a light Parmesan mousse with caramelized vegetables and truffle oil. Trump huffed. "Hipster food." "Haute cuisine," Musk corrected him. The guests around them leaned in with growing interest. To determine the winner, they decided to let the guests vote. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump addressed the room. "We have a little debate going on here. Help us settle it." Some people in the restaurant smiled, while others nodded, intrigued. The steak was tasted first. Magnificent. Real food for real people. Musk simply smirked. Then came his dish. The first few guests sampled it cautiously. Then, a man raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Whoa, this is unexpectedly good. Yeah, I wasn't expecting this kind of flavor balance. Unusual, but impressive." A sense of anticipation spread through the restaurant. Musk leaned back and grinned. "So, Don, ready to admit that style isn't always about gold?" Trump looked at him, then at the guests, where opinions seemed split. "All right," he finally said. "I'll admit, your dish surprised people." Musk lifted his glass. "This was fun." Trump smirked and took a sip of whiskey. "Yeah, but keep in mind, the game isn't over yet." Guests at the nearby tables exchanged glances. They could feel it, this night was far from finished. The restaurant was now filled with an atmosphere of eager anticipation. After tasting Trump's steak and Musk's dish, the room had split into two camps. Some supported the classic approach, while others leaned toward the refined minimalism of delicate flavors. Trump raised his glass again and looked at Musk. "All right, Elon. You've surprised me. But let's make this truly interesting." Musk smirked, tilting his head slightly. "I'm listening." "You've proven that taste isn't always about money," Trump said. "But if you really think you understand style, I have one final challenge." Musk took a sip of his wine. "Sounds promising." Trump placed his glass down and leaned forward. "We'll order one last dish. But this time, we won't choose it." Musk narrowed his eyes. Intriguing. Trump nodded at the waiter. Let the chef decide what to serve. The waiter froze for a second, processing what he had just heard. Then, he gave a respectful nod. As you wish, sir. He made his way toward the kitchen, leaving behind a wave of murmured conversations. Guests whispered among themselves, intrigued by the unexpected turn of events. Now this is getting interesting, muttered a man at a nearby table. I've never seen someone challenge their own chef, a woman responded. Musk smiled, looking at Trump. I have to admit, you know how to build suspense. Trump smirked. It's just business. They each took another sip of their drinks before Trump spoke again. Tell me, Elon. What's it like to change entire industries? Musk pondered for a moment. Exciting. But exhausting at the same time. People don't like change, even when it's for the better. Trump chuckled. That's something we have in common. Musk raised an eyebrow. You think we're alike? Trump leaned back. We both do what we believe is right, no matter what others say. Musk nodded. On that, I'll agree. The waiter returned, carrying a silver tray. He carefully placed it in the center of the table and slowly lifted the lid. A rich aroma of chocolate, citrus, and subtle spices filled the air. Dessert, the waiter announced. Experimental chocolate mousse with orange sorbet and a hint of chili. Trump raised his eyebrows. Now that's a twist. Musk took a spoonful and tasted it first. Trump watched him closely. Musk closed his eyes, savoring the flavors. Interesting, he finally said. In what way? Trump asked. Balance. First, the sweetness. Then, a light citrus tang. And finally, a warm, almost imperceptible heat from the chili. Trump took his own spoonful and tasted it. After a short pause, he smirked. Damn, this is actually good. They set their spoons down as the waiter stood by, eagerly awaiting their verdict. Trump sighed. Well, Elon. Ready to admit that food isn't just about technology? Musk smirked. And are you ready to admit that luxury isn't always about gold and crystal? They looked at each other for a moment, then both laughed. All right, I'll give you that, Trump said. Sometimes simplicity wins. And I'll admit that sometimes, a little extravagance is worth it, Musk nodded. They shook hands. Applause erupted from around the restaurant. Trump raised his glass. To a great evening. Musk lifted his own. And to great taste. They clinked glasses as the restaurant returned to its usual hum of conversation. But the atmosphere was different now. This was a night to remember. After dessert was finished and their glasses were refilled, the restaurant slowly settled back into its usual rhythm. Guests were no longer eavesdropping, and the waiters finally relaxed. It seemed as though the debate between Musk and Trump had come to an end. But as Musk watched the play of light in his wine glass, he suddenly spoke. Tell me, Don, have you ever thought about what you'd be doing if you weren't a businessman? Trump raised an eyebrow, then smirked. What about you, Elon? Musk chuckled. I once thought about becoming a writer. Trump laughed. You? A writer? Yeah. I always liked creating new worlds. I just ended up building them in reality instead of writing about them. Trump shook his head. Honestly, I never would have guessed. And you? Musk looked at him with genuine curiosity. Trump took a sip of whiskey, paused for a moment, then said. A restaurateur. Musk blinked. You're serious? Why not? Trump shrugged. I've always loved great restaurants. It's a business where style, prestige, and understanding people come together. Musk smirked. So if you hadn't built skyscrapers, you'd be opening restaurants? Possibly, Trump nodded. But not just any restaurants. What kind, then? Trump smiled. The kind that become legendary. Musk narrowed his eyes. Don, you do realize that our styles are completely different? That's exactly why it would work. The best restaurant isn't about just one person's vision, it's about balance. Musk nodded, considering. For a few moments, they just looked at each other. Then Trump smirked. You're already picturing it, aren't you? Musk set his glass down. Yeah, and I like it. Trump laughed. All right, tell me, what do you see? Musk pulled out his phone and began sketching on the screen. Minimalist, but with a technological edge. Drones serve the food. Each dish is customized to the guest's taste with AI. Trump shook his head. You always take things into the future. And what's your vision? Trump gestured to the waiter, who immediately placed a fresh glass of whiskey in front of them. Elegant interiors, attention to detail, the atmosphere of an exclusive club. People shouldn't just come here to eat, they should feel like they're part of something special. Musk smiled. A blend of futurism and classic luxury. So, you're warming up to the idea? Musk nodded. Maybe. Trump's expression turned serious. Let's make a deal. If we actually go through with this, you handle the technology, I handle the style. Musk thought for a moment. Only if the style stays refined. Only if the technology doesn't make it feel too cold. They studied each other again. Do we have a deal, Elon? Musk slowly extended his hand. We have a deal, Don. They shook hands, and a waiter standing nearby pretended not to hear their conversation. But one guest at a nearby table couldn't hold back. Excuse me, but, did you two just come up with a new restaurant? Musk and Trump turned toward him. They exchanged glances, then said at the same time. Maybe. The guest laughed. Then I'd like to reserve a table already. Musk smirked. Let's see how this turns out. They raised their glasses once more. To ideas that come at the most unexpected moments, Musk said. And to partnerships no one could have predicted, Trump added. They drank, and the restaurant returned to its usual sounds. But now, they both knew, this dinner had changed something. After toasting to unexpected partnerships, Musk and Trump fell silent for a moment, as if both had just realized the weight of their words. You know, Don, Musk said, setting his glass down, I'm not used to working in an industry where deals are made over dinner instead of in a lab or a testing facility. Trump smiled. And I'm used to doing business wherever the opportunity is. But a restaurant? Musk shook his head. That's an entirely different game. Exactly, Trump nodded. And that's why it's interesting. They exchanged looks. The question lingered in the air, are we really going to do this? Let's imagine we're already building it, Musk began. What would it look like? Trump leaned back in his chair. Prestigious. People should feel that it's more than just a place to eat, it's somewhere they aspire to be. So, an exclusive club for a select few? Exactly, Trump nodded. But not some closed-off elite circle. Just a place with limited access, where getting in means you've proven your status. Musk pondered for a moment. What if we add a technological edge? Smart systems that adapt to each guest, a kitchen powered by AI algorithms that tailor dishes to personal taste profiles. As long as it still feels real, not just a digital gimmick. Deal, Musk nodded. I handle the technology, you handle the atmosphere. Trump smirked. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, Elon. And you? Musk grinned. They clinked glasses again. At nearby tables, people were beginning to take notice. This dinner was turning into something more than just a debate. One guest leaned toward another and whispered. Are they seriously starting a business together? Looks like it. A few people discreetly pulled out their phones, pretending to check social media but actually trying to catch details of the conversation. Waiters exchanged glances, trying to figure out if something historic was unfolding right in front of them. But the two men at the center of it all paid no attention to the onlookers. "Let's set one thing straight from the beginning," Musk said. "I don't want this to turn into just another restaurant." "Don't worry," Trump smirked. "We'll make it something no one expects." "What about a membership model? Entry only for those who meet specific criteria?" "I like where you're going with this," Trump nodded. "That'll create an exclusive appeal." "And now the big question," Musk leaned on the table. "Who's funding this?" Trump smirked. "You want me to invest?" "You own real estate," Musk pointed out. "It makes sense for you to handle that side." "And you?" Musk took a sip of wine. "I can invest in the technology and concept development." Trump shook his head. "Deal. We need the perfect location," Musk said. "New York? Los Angeles?" "Los Angeles is too predictable," Musk noted. "So is New York." "Then where?" Musk thought for a moment. "Miami. Dubai. Or Mars." Trump laughed. "Let's start with something a little more grounded." "Fine," Musk smirked. "Let's go with Dubai." Trump nodded. "I like it." Musk tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "We can't just call it Musk and Trump Restaurant." "Of course not," Trump chuckled. "It needs a name that reflects both technology and status." Trump thought for a moment. "Quantum Lounge?" Musk raised an eyebrow. "Bold. You don't like it?" "On the contrary. I love it." Trump smirked. "Then we have a name." Meanwhile, one of the waiters who had been eavesdropping quietly whispered to his colleague. "They just came up with a restaurant concept. You think they'll actually do it?" "It's Musk and Trump." "Of course, they will." Trump gestured to a waiter. "Bring us the check." Musk raised an eyebrow. "You do own this restaurant, don't you?" Trump smirked and slid the bill toward Musk. "You're an investor now. Consider this your first investment." Musk shook his head and laughed. "All right. But next time, you're paying." Trump lifted his glass. "Deal." As they stepped out onto the streets of Los Angeles, the city shimmered with lights. "Well, Elon," Trump said, glancing around, "looks like we just launched a new project." "Looks like it," Musk smiled. They shook hands, then walked off in opposite directions. But they both knew, this night had just changed everything. After all the tastings and conversations, Musk leaned back in his chair, smirking with a hint of exhaustion. "All right, Don, I'll admit it, your food surprised me. But the interior still leaves much to be desired." Trump scoffed. "Of course. I should have known you'd latch on to that." "Because it matters," Musk replied. "People shouldn't just eat, they should feel comfortable. And here, there's just too much gold." Trump shook his head. "Be honest, you just can't bring yourself to admit that you actually like this place." Musk picked up his glass of wine, took a slow sip, and studied Trump. "Maybe. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong." At the surrounding tables, guests who had been discreetly eavesdropping on their exchange began whispering among themselves. Who would have thought Musk and Trump would end up debating restaurant design? They sound like two old friends who just enjoy teasing each other. I wonder who's going to win in the end. A waiter carefully approached with the final dessert. "This is our signature chocolate cake with caramelized nuts, gentlemen." Musk glanced at the dish, then at Trump. "All right. If this turns out to be good, I'll say this restaurant is not bad." Trump smirked. "Deal." Musk picked up a spoon, took a bite, and chewed slowly. The room grew quiet as guests watched for his reaction. Finally, he nodded. Damn it. This is actually good. Trump grinned triumphantly. See? Told you. Musk chuckled. Don't overdo it. The interior is still terrible. You're just stubborn, Trump replied, raising his glass. And you just love too much gold, Musk shot back. They both smirked, the waiter exhaled in relief, and the restaurant returned to its lively chatter once again. Trump placed his napkin on the table and gestured to the waiter. Well, I think it's time to wrap this up. The waiter nodded and brought over the check. Musk glanced at the total and smirked. I hope at least the bill looks stylish. Trump pulled the check closer, paused for a moment, then casually slid it over to Musk. You're paying. Musk feigned surprise. What? This is your restaurant. Exactly. That's why I eat here for free, Trump grinned. To be fair, you invited me, Musk pointed out. Yeah, but you spent the whole evening criticizing my restaurant. Consider this your fee for the critique. Musk rolled his eyes, pulled out his card, and handed it to the waiter. Fine, Don. You won this round. But I won't forget this. Trump smirked. I wouldn't expect you to. As they stepped outside, the lights of Los Angeles sparkled against the night sky. You know, despite all your design flaws, that was a pretty good dinner, Musk admitted. You weren't the worst dinner companion yourself, Trump replied. They shook hands before heading off in opposite directions. The evening had come to an end, but this conversation would stay with them for a long time.